Hey there and howdy. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing all right. I just got back from a exhausting class. I am currently this semester taking an acting class, which is super fun to do at art school.
Oh, I bet. You must...
Living the life, living the dream.
Oh, what a life. What a dream, honestly and truly.
How are you doing today?
Well, work was chaotic. I told you a little bit about it before we started recording, and I'm not going to expose where I work. I mean, you could probably figure it out if you wanted to, but it was a crazy day. Crazy things happened, but all good stuff, and I made it through. So at the end of the day, that's all that matters. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah, made it through. But yeah, here we are on our... Is this our 10th episode? We're on our double-digit episode.
Oh my gosh, the time is flying by, Grace.
Bro, do you remember when you turned 10 years old, though? I remember I had, like, a mini crisis, like, in my 4th grade classroom. Just because I was like, I'm never going to be single digits ever again. And I was, like, freaking out a little bit internally. I was just, like, watching the clock. And then once I saw... Because I was living in... Connecticut at the time, so I had to like wait an extra hour to like actually turn 10 years old, and I was just like, oh my god, it's happening. I was freaking out. I shouldn't have been freaking out. I was a changed woman once that clock struck 11:27 a.m. I was a new woman, and I've been that woman ever since.
Yeah, I was sick for my 10th birthday. There was like a few years in a row where I was just always sick on my birthday because we both have September birthdays. So mine happens to fall like right when I start getting seasonal allergies and right when flu season starts at school. So I've been consistently sick on my birthday, except for the past like probably 4 or 5 years or something.
Oh, look at you go. Way to turn it around.
Thank you. But I do think that for my 10th birthday, I was gifted an iPod Nano with a video camera.
Oh my God.
In the shade purple.
That's insane. That's insane. I had an iPod Nano. Was it like one of so it was one of the like skinny boys?
Yes.
That was one of the skinny ones. Mm-hmm. I had one of the little stumpy ones. I had one of those stumpy ones. Even when I got like an iPod Touch later on. I never had one with a camera. You really were out here flexing.
I was making music videos.
Oh my God. Do you have access to any of those?
I want to say no, but I know that I definitely do have access to them because I would take videos on my iPod Nano, and then I did the Apple Store summer camp thing where you would go in and you would actually make an actual video. And so I know that they're on a hard drive somewhere. Which is so embarrassing.
As per usual, there was another issue with the microphone. We do appreciate your patience. We're trying our best, and there will be another hiccup in a few seconds. But, you know, we love you. Thanks for being here.
I think I'm back now. Very sorry. Of course that has to something always has to happen. Every single time. Anyways... One other like quick little side note though, just about like old fashioned iPod days. I remember when I still was using my iPod Nano, but like the iPod Touch had come out. One time I was like at my sister's soccer practice because we always had like alternating practices. So I'd have to like sit through hers once mine was done. And I wanted to look whoa, okay, hold on. Hold your horses. My audio is it recording?
A brief intermission.
Back to what I was saying, though, about my iPod Nano days. I just remember the iPod Touch had come out, but I was still rocking my little Nano. And I wanted it to look like I had an iPod Touch. So, like, anytime anyone, like, looked at me, like, anyone else in the bleachers looked at me, I would just, like, tap my Nano just, like, all over its screen and just... like pretend like it was an iPod Touch, but it wasn't.
You maniac. Why did you do that?
I wanted one so bad. It's that like I just wanted people to think that I had one. So I just pretended like I did. And I was just like, you know what? Look at me.
Oh my God. Kids are so funny.
Screen. I know. So funny, so stupid. Yes. You know what wasn't stupid but was funny?
Mm-hmm.
The movie that we watched this for this episode.
Yes.
It was, we watched Crazy Rich Asians, which finally was a good movie. It was just such a well done movie. Mm-hmm. What can I say?
I love Crazy Rich Asians. This is the second time I've watched it all the way through. Maybe the third time. The first time I saw it in the theater with my mom, and we both cried in the theater.
Really?
Because of the wedding scene, which we'll get to later.
Okay, fair.
But yeah, it's just a really, really well done movie, and even of being LGBTQIA plus descent, I really was not bothered by the love story in any way at all, which I made a note of in my notes. But I think it's just it's a beautiful story, and although it like is a love story for like a few different couples, it is more important than that. Mm-hmm. It's not just like a typical rom-com. It's so much better.
Yeah. No, I found myself, I was like, I still took a lot of notes. I always take too many notes. Even like back when I was still in school, I always took way too many notes no matter what I was doing it for. But like the difference in the kind of notes I was taking for this versus Bakery in Brooklyn, like Bakery in Brooklyn, I just had to like make it all make sense. So I basically had to rewrite the whole movie in my notes so that I could remember what was going on. And I also was constantly rewinding the movie so that I could get like the exact quotes, because the quotes were so insane that they needed to be documented. But this time around, I was just like able to enjoy the movie, and it was such a lovely process for me. Mm-hmm. Oh. But without further ado, would you like to read off the little synopsis before we dive right in?
Sure. So,
very nice.
Crazy Rich Asians. Jeez Louise. I've been in acting class all day. The tongue twisters were not something that happened today. So it was released August 15th of 2018, and the synopsis is: Rachel Chu is happy to accompany her longtime boyfriend Nick to his best friend's wedding in Singapore. She's also surprised to learn that Nick's family is extremely wealthy, and he's considered one of the country's most eligible bachelors. Thrust into the spotlight, Rachel must now contend with jealous socialities, quirky relatives, and something far, far worse: Nick's disapproving mother.
Eleanor.
It has, oh my gosh, it has a 6.9 out of 10 on Google reviews. Why is that? But it does have 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, which stacks up. I'm very surprised that that's 6 out of 10 from IMDb.
I mean, it was nearly a 7.
It seems very low for this movie, though.
It does. I would have expected like a 7.5 or higher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I don't know the criteria behind it, but a 6.9 does seem lower than I would have thought.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, hey, Rotten Tomatoes 90%, still doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I looked up the box office numbers per usual. The budget was $30 million. Box office 238.5. So we're finally actually watching a movie. Bakery in Brooklyn didn't even get released in the United States. It was like only released in Italy, and it made like $600K.
Yeah.
One other little fun fact though, this is so incredibly unrelated. I just thought it was really interesting when I was looking up what they did in box office numbers. It also showed me what Mamma Mia made in the box office. Again, for reference, Crazy Rich Asians, did it not get like an Oscar nomination or some sort? Like, it was really highly acclaimed, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Or am I just going crazy? They made, again, 238.5. Guess how much Mamma Mia made in the box office?
Probably, I don't even know.
$609.8 million in the box office, which honestly, love it for them. I love Mamma Mia.
Is that the original one, or was that the second one? Because I thought they were released maybe the same year.
I think it was the original Mamma Mia, like the first one.
Okay.
Which, Oh, oh my God. I would love a Mamma Mia episode. Oh my God. Mamma Mia. Well, I also just, I have so much nostalgia tied to it, but
yeah, I love that.
So unimportant. I just like saw the number and I was like, oh my God. Like I expected Mamma Mia would have done well, but 3 times Crazy Rich Asians, no. Anyways, here we go. So the movie starts out and it's kind of like a flashback, you know, given a little bit of context. We see Nick at, I think it's Astrid as a child. So it's Nick, Astrid. Astrid is one of Nick's cousins and she ends up being like a very important character throughout the rest of the film. But it's Nick, Astrid, and his mother, Eleanor. I'm not sure who the other lady is, but I would assume that it is Astrid's mother that's also there. It's the 4 of them are arriving at a hotel. It's raining outside, and Eleanor tries to check into the hotel. Did I mention Eleanor is Nick's mom? I don't know if I did.
I don't know.
I don't know. Eleanor is Nick's mom. She'll be very important for obvious reasons. She tries to check into the hotel, and would you believe it? The white people behind the desk are racist and don't want to let them in. Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that they have a reservation and all this stuff, it's a whole mess. But then Eleanor calls up her hubby, and apparently... not only does her husband have connections to this hotel, he is the new owner of the hotel. So the owner that had been there comes downstairs and like tells the real racist workers, by the way, this is your new boss. So it's quite the baddie moment, if you will, where I remember like the first time, because this is also my second time watching Crazy Rich Asians. The first time I saw it, I wasn't as moved, only because I was on a flight and I was just not in a great mood to begin with. So I don't think I fully appreciated how good the movie was the first time I saw it, but I loved it this time. But so the movie starts out, it gives you that little taste of Eleanor's ferocious nature, and it just kind of, I don't know, lets you know that their family's a big deal kind of right off the bat. But yeah, there's just like that little snippet at the beginning. And then we cut to like the present day, which at the time was 2018. And we're introduced to Rachel, who is the main character. And she is a econ professor at NYU, and she is having herself quite the baddie moment where she is lecturing students, and she does it by playing a game of poker with one of her teaching assistants, and she absolutely skills him, and basically like she kind of was using like psychology in some way. She was like, he wasn't playing to win, he was playing to not lose, and she wipes the floor with him, and yeah, so we get to see her have her own little moment. And then so those are both kind of just like important setup scenes. The moment with Rachel will definitely come back later in a very important part of the movie later, so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But then it's kind of the first scene where there's actual like real communication. At this point, Rachel and Nick are kind of on like a little date at a restaurant, and in this moment he kind of brings up wanting to bring her to Singapore for a wedding, and this is kind of where all the chaos begins to ensue, if you will. It really does. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what are other little things. Like there's it's so weird because I'm so used to such like chaotic movies where like by now I would have had like 10 things to complain about, but now it's like, do I just keep explaining what happened in the movie? Like,
I don't know. They kind of just
it's really, so strange.
They really throw you into the plot right away, and I really appreciate that they did have that scene at the very beginning. The opening scene, I think, really stuck with me when I saw it for the first time. I really appreciated it, and I think as a white person viewing the movie, it definitely is, I don't want to say a relatable thing, but it makes everything else just kind of click in your mind, where Yeah, in Western society, we do have this idea that people who are not white are typically poor and struggling, and that is very much not always the case. And yeah, I don't really know how to talk too much about it, but I just remember that scene being so important. And then when Nick turns around and just like smiles like, hey, like, you know, this little dude is gonna be trouble.
Yeah.
And then I also just really appreciated that they did show Rachel in her place of work, because that really empowers her too. Like, she has a very important position as a professor, and I think in a lot of other movies they would maybe just, I think they typically show women in their daily life like getting ready for something, or like how many scenes have we seen of a woman in the shower and blow drying her hair and everything. But Rachel is shown at her job, so she's already built up being a very smart person and a very capable person, and someone who definitely has a grasp on her own independence for sure. And then Nick is kind of the damsel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's honestly a really good point. They definitely set up both of the, both Eleanor, well, I guess Eleanor, Nick, and Rachel up in very interesting ways. But it is really cool that they show Rachel in that in her workplace for the reasons that you said, but also because throughout the rest of the movie, for a lot of it, you know, she's in Singapore, she's in an area where she doesn't know anybody, and she's getting very mistreated by some of the people over in Singapore because they're very jealous that she's got such a good guy and, like, obviously very wealthy, most eligible bachelor. Everyone wants to be her, so they just kind of are very, very mean to her. So it's I appreciate that they showed us her in her comfort zone at first, and her like in a moment that was empowering, because again, for a lot of the rest of the movie, you know, things are happening to her, but you do know in the back of your mind that she has the ability to be more than just Nick's girlfriend, kind of a deal. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, there's no crazy it's still so crazy. I'm so used to having to like talk about quotes of, oh, it's so unfair that the letters in the middle of the word aren't capitalized. God. Like, I'm so used to having to like pause to talk about those kind of quotes that I'm just like, oh, I guess here's more of the movie. But yeah, so once Nick asks her, literally before she could even accept the invitation, there are like two other girls that are in the restaurant that walk by and see Nick, obviously recognize him. At this point, again, Rachel is not aware that Nick is basically royalty in Singapore, has no clue. But these two girls that do know who he is and are from Singapore walk by and like take a sneaky pic of the two, like either as they're kissing or just like obviously together. And it just immediately makes the rounds in all of Singapore, and everyone knows about them. And before, again, Nick and Rachel even have the chance to figure out whether or not they're going to go, Nick's mother already has seen the picture while she's in her little Bible study with her besties. And she calls Nick and is very much like, so who is this? And I have your room ready for you when you come to this wedding. Like, she never outright ever says that she doesn't want Rachel to come, but she very much makes it clear without saying it, kind of a deal. But yeah, and Rachel ends up accepting, and they decide to go. And the next scene is, so after they decide to go, Nick's talked to his mom. We cut to a scene where Rachel's with her mom. I love her mom so much. Her mom's so sweet. And, they're trying to, you know, just kind of pick out some clothing for when Rachel is going to meet Nick's family. And her mom just kind of warns her, like, it may be tough to impress his family. Again, she's not aware of who Nick's family is either, but is just very cautious to not expect to be accepted right away, which she was correct. I must say she was on the nose. But the next scene then is Nick and Rachel at the airport, and immediately they are given the VIP treatment, and Rachel is very confused. She said, excuse me, we are economy class. Is that what it is? Economy class? I'm like never, I rarely ever fly.
Economy but yeah, is like the basic,
the like
one.
regular seats.
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember if economy was, I think I was thinking of like business class, but like economy and business, those are related words.
They usually overlap, but sometimes business has like a little more foot room. I could be wrong. I just know that economy and first class are very different.
Oh, okay. But yeah, they're immediately greeted at the doors, and Rachel's very confused, and Nick's like, no. It's fine. This is normal. This is fine. This is good. And she's like, Then once they get on the plane, and they are very much in the first class of first class and basically get their own room inside of a plane, she's like, okay, you need to explain this, which fair enough. And this man, I'm trying to keep my words in. This man, basically is like, yeah, my family's comfortable. Come to find out, yeah, his family is very rich, but he still kind of undersells it. She still isn't fully aware. But yeah, then cut to the next scene. They arrive in Singapore, and this is where they meet Colin and Araminta, which are the two people that are getting married. Is it Araminta or is it Araminta? I wrote this down. I totally wrote this down. Araminta, my bad. But Araminta and Colin are the people that are getting married. And they are so sweet. Love those two. Love those two.
Why don't they show up more?
Wait, what?
Why don't they show up more? They were so nice. They were so fun. They're also just like the perfect people that you want to meet from your significant other's like group. Like I feel like they were just very open. They were very nice. Like
they were.
I've had great situations and I've had horrifying situations of meeting my significant other's people. And that would be a very nice one.
I know, but it's honestly so wild to me. Obviously, like you can't choose your family or whatever, because a lot of the people that really bully Rachel as we go on are like family members that aren't approving and all of that kind of stuff. But like, how is Araminta such a sweetheart, and then she had the worst people in the world on her bachelorette party? Mm-hmm. I was so mad. Oh, we'll get to that as well. But the only moment that like I specifically wrote down from when they were at the airport, because the airport scene once they get to Singapore is literally just Araminta and Colin picking them up. And then they go to a market and they kind of just drive around the area. Nothing like all that significant happens. It's really just them arriving and getting acquainted with Singapore. But Rachel had a quote that was JFK, as in the airport, is just salmonella and despair. And I thought that was very, very, very funny. As a former East Coast living human, I must say, very funny quote, and I concur. JFK truly is salmonella and despair.
Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, I hated flying when I lived on the East Coast, but next scene. Here we go. Now we start to kind of we start to get to know a bit of the family. Most important person of the family, other than like the parent, Nick's mother and grandmother, is Astrid. As we mentioned earlier, that is one of Nick's cousins. Probably, I would say, the movie led me to believe that was like the cousin he was the closest to growing up. Like they kind of were like brother and sister, but were actually cousins, kind of a deal. It is such a baller moment. Astrid, wait, is this even the part that I'm thinking of? Oh, no. Okay, hold on. The scene I was thinking of comes a little later. Anyways, so this movie again very much is about Nick and Rachel while they're at a wedding of another couple, but the other couple that we get a lot of the storyline of is Astrid and her husband Michael, and this is our first introduction to Astrid and Michael's relationship. And I think they very much use Astrid and Michael's relationship sort of as like a mirror of what Nick and Rachel's relationship could be if it had gone wrong, kind of a deal, is like why that's what I kind of took away from like why they had it there, because otherwise it felt like a little random that like why am I getting all of this storyline about Astrid and Michael. But it's very much because it's a similar matchup in the sense that Astrid comes from the Young family with all of the money, all of the wealth and all of that stuff, but Michael was just a regular guy. So this is our first introduction to this other couple that has like a similar background. And it's just, we see Astrid arriving home and she's hiding a bunch of stuff that she had just bought. And she her husband comes home and they kind of have a weirdly semi-tense conversation, and she mentions that she thinks that Michael will like Rachel, and he makes a bit of a remark about like, oh, is it because she's a commoner just like me? And it's a little like, you know, you feel the tension. It's just kind of a scene to set that mood is what I'd say. But then they cut right back to Rachel and Nick, and this is a time where we just find out what happens for the rest of the day. It's not an important scene at all. But the next moment, the next like important scene is we meet Peek Lynn, who is Rachel's friend from college. I think it was like her old roommate, who is played by none other than Awkwafina. Mm-hmm. Who I think there is a very recent and relevant conversation to be had about her before we kind of dive into all of the scenes with Peek Lynn. Is that something you want to set up, or do you want me to just...
Awkwafina, who I don't know how to talk about her because it's not really my conversation to have. Right. I will say that I have enjoyed roles that she has done, and I have found her funny, but I also am not the person to decide if her career is valid and if her talking about her use of a black scent is okay. It's not okay for her to use a false black scent. It's not okay for anyone to use a false black scent. But I think her response to it hasn't been as good as it could be. I think the background of the story is that she grew up in Brooklyn, and she had started her career as like a comedy rapper and was using a black scent. And then when people called her out on it, she said that it was because she grew up in Brooklyn and she grew up talking like that, but immediately stopped using that type of accent or inflection in her voice. And I think that's what people have found extremely problematic about her response, is that she tried to justify it rather than admitting that she was wrong and should not do that. And it is not up to us to determine if her response is valid or not, or if her later response is valid or not. But I will say that I did find her character in this movie very funny.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good summary of it. Yeah, basically she was called out for using a black scent and claimed it's because of her New York roots and all of that. I have her apology of sorts pulled up. It's very long though. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but what I will say is, of course, to echo what you said, neither of us are the people to accept or deny her remarks. But anytime a celebrity is caught in hot water, just in general, and they decide to put up a Notes app apology and then say, now I'm going to leave Twitter so that I can't be a part of this discourse anymore, I think that that is very weak in general when any celebrity does it ever. Especially because she never full on says, I did this and that was wrong. She very much skirts around it. But yet again, to echo what you said, it's not up to us. We are clearly white women, and it is not up to us to say whether or not what she did is okay. I would also say, like, again, I've enjoyed roles that she's in, and I think Peek Lynn is a great character. However, there's like only like a few moments within this movie where I think she used a little bit of a black scent. It is very uncomfortable to hear. And I wish that they hadn't happened. But yeah, I think you did a very good summary of it. It's a mess. It's a mess, and hopefully she, going forward, actually like acknowledges things and makes a change in her general comedic ventures.
I hope that she can address it soon as well, because I do really enjoy her work. I just think it's really interesting how millennials are adapting to cancel culture, and I don't have the best relationship with cancel culture, not in a personal way, but just in the fact that I think some people from our generation, or from Gen Z, because we're technically Zillennials, I guess. I think some people from Gen Z have a difficulty understanding that, like, sometimes it is okay to call people out, but other times, when people are accountable for their actions, it doesn't mean that you always need to cancel them all the time or shame people for what they like and don't like. I think Gen Z, and this is just a completely different conversation. My sister is 16, as I've said before, and so we have grown up just in very different social climates. Like, she has known social media her entire life, and we've only known it since middle school. So it's just very interesting the way that her generation handles cancel culture. Our little 5-year generation from like 1995 to 2000. I'm 99, you're 98. And then millennials. And we don't need to talk about Gen X. But
no, I'm good.
I think by far out of everyone, millennials have the hardest time adapting to being held accountable, because they've just been able to do whatever the fuck they want their entire lives. And then we just kind of sit there in the middle and let Gen Z and millennials duke it out. And I'm not saying that what am I saying? Some people do deserve to be canceled. This is true. But I think other people have done things that that they can apologize for and continue their career after. Someone like Shane Dawson does not deserve to have a career, because he has countless, many times has done horrible, disgusting, very, very racist things. But I think someone like, and this is just my personal opinion, and it's not just because I enjoy some of her work, but I think someone like Awkwafina could bounce back. But again, not my area to decide.
Right. There's definitely a difference between, like, you know, holding a celebrity accountable versus they should no longer have a platform. Like, there is a difference between the two. But again, despite the fact that I too have, you know, I mean, I like Crazy Rich Asians. I personally liked Ocean's 8. Like, I've liked things that she's in, but it's not up to me. And also, the longer she goes without saying anything and actively trying to fix stuff, the worse it reflects on her. But yeah, that's kind of up to her whether or not she actually makes positive from the negative that she's done in her past, and for not even like for her sake, but just for the sake of like, I think that she could it's frustrating again, because like she can be so funny, but of course in those moments when she uses a black scent, it's just uncomfortable and it's dehumanizing to Black people. Like it's horrible. I hate when she does it, but it's one of those moments where it's like, I understand that it's embarrassing and like a PR nightmare to get called out as a celebrity, but use that moment to maybe then make a conversation about what you did wrong and how it was wrong and how it can be known to be wrong going forward, you know? Because like I know that there's plenty of like things that were used in comedy in the past that never were okay, like never were a good thing, but were socially accepted. It's why you have all of these like former Viners that are getting called out for like the really racially charged videos that they used to make, but back in the day they were weirdly accepted by people. And the same thing with Awkwafina. If what she had been doing was something that people didn't socially accept at the time, she would have never had a career. However, it was something that was socially accepted when she first started. However, now that it's not, as it shouldn't be, just gonna put it out, like, I'm not saying it was okay for the Viners to say the things that they did or for Awkwafina to have ever used a black scent, but I think it's one of those things that like this is showing how, you know, quote unquote cancel culture can create a better environment for all people, because guess what? It never was okay to say these things, even though we allowed people to. And I just wish that she would be more open in her conversation of, I did do this and it never was okay and I shouldn't have done it. And guess what? Going forward, I will be openly outspoken against it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I as a white person on the sidelines think would have been a good idea. But again, not for me to accept, deny, dictate, but that's kind of my thoughts on it, I suppose.
Yeah. And I have seen people talk about it on TikTok recently. It's been a really, really big conversation. But I would just say, like, I don't think you should always like base things off of your own personal thoughts, especially when it comes to like situations where someone could possibly get hurt. Like if someone's going to get hurt, like always think about the nice part. What am I saying? I don't know. I just think maybe don't get all of your information from TikTok either is what I'll say to the young people out there. And if you are young, maybe find a different podcast.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we're old people now. According to my sister, we're vintage because we're from the 90s.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, we're from the 1900s, barely. But I guess final wrap-up thoughts is listen to Black people. If they're telling you that you're saying something or doing something that's harmful to their community, maybe just quit it and apologize and admit that you acknowledge that you did it, apologize for it, and make change. You know, those are kind of my thoughts. But yeah, back to kind of where the movie is. It's a very relevant discourse because Awkwafina is very much in the middle of being called out for that. So had to have that caveat. But at this moment, we do meet Peek Lynn, who is Awkwafina's character, who actually, like, again, like you said, she is a very fun and lovable character in this movie. She, again, is one of Rachel's friends from college. And Rachel goes in, she meets Peek Lynn's family. They have a baller mansion, an incredible mansion. It is humongous. And Rachel meets Peek Lynn's family. And this is when she gets like the full context of like, Nick's not just rich. His family is practically royalty, and they literally built like that area of Singapore from the ground up, are like the landlords of that area, and good luck meeting his family is kind of the tone. There's a cute little scene where Peek Lynn helps Rachel find a new outfit because she was like, that outfit, absolutely not gonna work. Yeah, fun little moment. But then Peaklin is driving Rachel to Nick's grandmother's house.
You didn't even talk about the dress that she gave her and how magnificent it is. I remember being blown away by that dress because it's so pretty. It's got like a deep V neckline. It's sparkly. It's got stripes, my trademark.
Ooh,
I loved it.
Honestly, when it comes to me and dresses, it's just over my head. It's so over my head. Like anytime I have to wear a dress, like when I was in like my dad's wedding or something, oh my God, like it's out of body experience for me to just like have to be in a dress and like have to be feminized for even just like a few hours. I know, feminized. Even just for like a few hours. I don't know. I mean, sure, it's a good dress. I'm very happy you enjoyed it. I'm glad you had that viewing pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then now we finally get to Nick's grandma's house, and this is kind of when we first get to meet like all of the rest of his family. I believe I missed a part in my notes though. I believe when they were on the plane, he kind of gives like brief little descriptions of a bunch of his cousins, which I do have some notes on. But yeah, Eleanor is the mother, Astrid's the cousin that was nearly a sister. Nick always refers to his grandma as Ama. There's Peaklin, Charlie, I never saw him. I don't know where he was. Araminta, Colin. There's a cousin named Bernard. He's just like the really douchey cousin. I don't even know if he was a cousin or a friend, but
basically they meet a bunch of people at this party, and Rachel gets very overwhelmed and has a hard time tracking who everyone is, and the mother is there, but she's trying to manage the whole party, and Rachel is just getting very, very overwhelmed, and there's a lot happening. It's a lot to take in, and I think they did a really good job kind of making the audience feel like they're also taking in a lot of information, and it's very busy and it's very loud and it's very overwhelming, and you feel kind of out of place, and you don't really, I mean, not a whole lot of people, especially people that I know, have experienced being in a giant mansion at a giant party with meeting all of the people.
Right. Right. No, it's there's a lot of cousins, a lot of people. But then there's a moment, this is the moment though where she meets Eleanor for the first time, which is a very important meeting. Basically it's one of those moments where like earlier, Eleanor never says anything directly about not liking Rachel, but she makes it very, very evident that she does not like or approve of Rachel. Like she'll ask her questions and then she'll walk away and not really listen to Rachel, and like those kinds of, like it's very put offish. It's not comfortable. But then cut back to the large ballroom. We meet even more family, and there's just, even the people that Rachel doesn't directly meet, there's a lot of judgment coming from everybody. Like there's just constantly, any scene where she's walking anywhere, you can just like see people just staring right at her. She's clearly the talk of the town. But there is another moment of Astrid and her husband Michael. Michael was kind of hiding in the corner, and when he first got to the party, he was like, I'll be in my usual corner kind of a thing. Like he very much did not want to be socializing with the family, a part of the family, any of that. And he's on the phone. Astrid's bringing him some food. He leaves the corner for a second because she realizes she forgot to grab him a fork. She looks down at his phone, and what do you know? The man is cheating. The man is cheating on Astrid. How rude. How absolutely rude of this man.
Yeah.
I have to say. Because Astrid is such a sweetheart. She is such, like, for all of the really judgy, mean people in Nick's family, Astrid is so sweet. She's so great.
Yes, she's very kind and very elegant, and I think that her character is an extremely important character in the movie as well, because it's not often that you see someone who comes from a lot of money and is very humble about it, and then has a partner who's not okay with it, especially being a woman and being married to a, like you said, a commoner for a man.
Yeah, because like I mentioned in that other scene, she always hid all of her purchases from him. She didn't want him to feel lesser than, because she was able to buy the kind of things that she was able to buy.
And he's just very insecure about it.
Yeah.
And you can tell
she literally buys earrings for $1.2 million at the beginning of the movie. She is very much very, very rich, and he's just constantly like, you don't have to hide it from me, I know I'm a small commoner man that is so tiny, like
yeah.
But yeah, then after that, Rachel meets Oliver, who's another one of like the actual good family members. He's very sweet. He's played by someone that was in Superstore, so I recognized him, but he's the gay cousin. He called himself the rainbow sheep of the family. Yeah, so there's a line. There's one. But yeah, then there's a scene where Eleanor talks to Nick, makes it very clear that she was not a big fan. And in that moment, we do learn that Nick was meant to move back to Singapore a year before, but he hadn't done that. And it was to, like take over some of the family business. However, Rachel still is not aware of that either. Rachel is very kept in the dark. Basically, this whole movie is just... Do you remember that meme, like, from a few years ago when it was New Year's and Kylie Jenner was like, this was the year of realizing things? Like, that was literally Rachel.
I don't remember that meme. I'm sorry.
It was hilarious. There's just this video where she's like, yeah, I just, like, realized a lot of things this year. And that's literally Rachel throughout this whole movie. It's just Rachel realizing things. Because she's kept in the dark, left, right, and center. It's okay. It's all right.
I try very hard to avoid Kylie Jenner. She really makes me mad.
Yeah. The Jenners and the Kardashians in general. I used to watch a lot of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
I did too.
I will admit to that. In middle school, that was it.
I am personally fascinated with the actual Kardashians. It's just the Jenners that really throw me off. Like yesterday, I got into the rabbit hole of Penelope and North's TikToks, and I was
wow.
This is the most fascinating thing I have ever seen in my entire life, because sometimes like Kim and Courtney will pop up, or like Travis Barker will pop up, and you're like, this is the most insane thing that I've ever seen in my life. And then you get to like see the inside of their house and the inside of Penelope's shower, where she has all Kylie Cosmetics things, and then Northwest has a purse collection, but she dresses like me. She wears Carhartt overalls, and like it's
take a second to breathe. Take a second to breathe.
I am more fascinated in these children's TikToks than I was in Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and it's like I am not the target audience.
No, not at all. Not at all. You are not even meant to know of their I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, which is kind of shocking, but
really?
Yeah, no,
I found it because North showed up on my For You page, and I was like, what is this? Is this real? And they're verified accounts.
Oh, they should be.
It's so funny.
Oh,
but all the comments are turned off, which makes me so mad.
Oh my God.
But I'm sure it's for the children's safety.
I was going to say, for them being kids, it's probably for the best that, if they're going to be on social media, don't let people say anything to them. That's probably for the better.
They're too little.
They're very much too little, very much too little.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Rachel is going to realize some things. Realize.
Oh my God.
I had to put it out there.
That meme I do know.
Yeah. The next scene is also pretty important because this is the first time that Rachel ends up meeting the grandmother of the family. And Amma is also a bit unimpressed. You know, she's not as direct as Eleanor, but she kind of just makes a comment about Rachel's nose, and that's like it. She does say that, like, oh, it would be fun to make dumplings with you at some point, and the grandmother is kind of receptive to that. So it's like, it feels like there's a little bit of hope, but it's not. Don't get so hopeful, and that's the reality. The next few scenes are the Bachelor and Bachelorette weekend, of which I just have to put it out there. Obviously, both of them are bad. The bachelor party, I did mention Bernard is a very douchey either cousin or friend of Colin and Nick, and he's the one that planned the bachelor party. So they literally go on to a cargo ship in like international waters, so all is legal. And it is just pure chaos. And I have to say, that is my ultimate nightmare. That is my ultimate nightmare of any kind of a bachelorette party, to just be on a boat that I have to get to by helicopter.
What? You don't want your own sweet life on deck situation?
That is
you don't want to experience it?
Okay, even Sweet Life on Deck, which is like not as crazy, is still on a cruise. And as someone who is very scared of getting sick and has had the neurovirus before, I would rather not ever go.
Oh my God. I always forget that we all had norovirus. So when Grace and I were in high school, it was your senior year and it was my junior year. And there was an outbreak of norovirus so huge that it wiped out the entire senior class for like at least a week. I think they shut down the entire school because it was getting passed around so easily. And none of the underclassmen had it, but I and like 2 other juniors had it, and then the entire senior class. Yeah, don't you remember?
I didn't remember that it was just my grade. I thought because it also passed down to like the middle school, because the middle school had to close too. I thought it was just school wide.
No, only a few people from the grades that weren't the senior class had it, and then all of the seniors had it. I remember it was like me and I think 1 or 2 other juniors. And then your entire friend group had it. And we were all just shitting and throwing up at our own houses. It was very, so very bad. It was the most pain I've ever been in my entire life. It was so disgusting.
I will say, traumatized me a little bit. Definitely have a bit of a metaphobia since then. But, you know, we're dealing with it. We're trying. Yeah. But,
it was not fun.
Being on a large boat for an extended period of time, no, absolute nightmare for me. So the bachelor party, crazy. Bachelorette party is its own sort of bad, because Rachel is invited by Araminta. However, Araminta does not spend much time with her. Another woman named Amanda does. She befriends her right away, and it seems like all's well and dandy. However, that quickly changes, and we find out that Amanda is actually Nick's ex, who is very bitter about it. And Amanda, as well as like the rest of the girls, all still are very jealous of Rachel, and they literally like try to bully her out, and they put a dead fish in her bed and write like they call her a gold digger, and they write it all over her room. Like, it's horrible. But in this moment, Astrid comes and saves the day. I mean, she's the one that's nice to Rachel. So those two kind of spend the bachelorette party together. And during these scenes of the bachelor and bachelorette parties, we also find out that Nick has been wanting to propose to Rachel, and he has this kind of conversation with Colin about it, and it cuts between Nick and Colin, as well as Astrid and Rachel talking, and Astrid opens up to Rachel about how she knows that Michael's cheating, and again, Nick and Colin have this conversation of whether or not Nick really even can propose, you know, because it's kind of like, do you choose your family because they want you to move back to Singapore, or do you choose Rachel and kind of go down that path kind of a deal?
It's an interesting thing that comes up because it's not, at least in my experience, a very common thing. But I feel like it might be a sort of common experience for the LGBTQIA community to like choose being straight for your family or being gay for happiness. And just to relate it to us.
Yeah.
It's not either of our personal experience, thank God. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. And then it brings up the idea of like, would Nick's mom be okay with anyone? Or like, what's her actual issue? Because wasn't she just like a commoner and married rich? And like, why is she so not okay with Rachel? Or why is anyone so not okay with Rachel? And what is their obsession with like trying to get in with this family? I mean, it's obviously money, but it just raises a lot of like, why is it like this kind of thing? And yeah, it's just there's a lot of interesting dynamics that don't show up in a lot of traditional rom-coms. And I think that's what makes this story so powerful.
Right, because of course, like there's kind of the typical like hazing and like pranks being pulled that happen in a lot of rom-coms, but like there's a depth to it that's different in this movie. And very relevant, the next scene that happens is the scene where Rachel, Nick, and a bunch of his family are together making dumplings. And during this dumpling making time, Rachel, at one point, I believe she like is looking for the bathroom or something. And or actually right before she leaves, she mentions to Eleanor, just trying to, you know, exchange pleasantries, says that she really likes her ring. But then again, soon she goes to the bathroom and kind of finds out a bit more about it. The ring actually, because Eleanor follows Rachel kind of in a creepy way. And she lets her know that the ring, because everybody gets a little uncomfortable when she brings up the ring, and Eleanor kind of explains why. And it's because the ring is actually like her engagement ring to Nick's father. However, the ring was not the one that was typically passed down through the family because Amma, the grandmother, did not approve of Eleanor. And basically lets Rachel know, and guess what, girl? I'm going to do the same thing to you. I do not approve of you. And says it took a long time for Amma to come around to me, and that because she had gone through it, she knows that Rachel will never be enough. And I was like, well, okay, like she was just trying to pee. She was just trying to find the bathroom, and you come up here and you give her a whole midlife crisis. Eleanor's tough. Eleanor's tough. Yeah, that's a toughie. That's the toughie. You know, you say, hey, gonna go pee. And then Eleanor just follows you. And
you're not good enough.
You're not good enough for my son. Like, all right. And then she's like, oh, we better get back to the dumplings or Nick's gonna get worried. And I'm like, girl, you don't care. You do not care. I was so mad because at the beginning of the movie, I was like, "Oh, Eleanor, you baddie!" When she like shuts down the people in the hotel, and then she's so mean to Rachel. I was like, oh, so disappointing. I was like, I was rooting for you. I really was. But anyways, after that, Rachel is obviously very distraught. And decides to hang out with Peak Lynn. Peak Lynn gives her a bit of a pep talk. It is kind of one of the moments where Awkwafina slips into a bit of a black scent, so it is a little strange. But in the end, like, besides that little moment,
then they go on a shopping spree.
They go on a shopping spree, and I had my like captions on while I was watching it, and I just absolutely loved when they go on the shopping spree, and it just popped up "Material Girl" in Cantonese.
Yes, it was so good. That was one of my notes.
God,
I loved
so
all of the. I feel like that happened in a different movie that we watched, or something that I recently watched. where it was Bend It Like Beckham, where they had regular pop songs but in a different language. Oh my god, I love when they do that. It's so fun.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Well, especially with how like the Material Girl, obviously not Madonna's Material Girl, but like the other version of Material Girl is like all popular on TikTok right now. I was like, oh my god, Material Girl. I was like, yeah, I do want Chanel down boots. I do. Material Girl.
Follow us on TikTok. We do have a TikTok. I have made one of those with that sound. I have
made a note of. We really need to start shouting out our social media during these episodes because I always forget.
Mm-hmm. I was bashing TikTok earlier in this, but please follow us on TikTok.
Yeah, we're a good TikTok. We're a good one, I promise. But at this point now, it's finally the wedding, and also, as people are arriving to the wedding, we do get another scene of Astrid and Michael, where Astrid finally like tells him like, I know you cheated on me. And is like, we can keep it quiet just to get through this wedding, but then we're going to need to separate.
Oof.
And this man really said, I'm tired of nothing I do mattering, including having an affair, because she wants to keep it quiet. This man almost drove me crazy. I was like, she never said that nothing you did matters. She just... Anyways, Michael drives me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, he seems like he could have been a good guy, but he just, his ego got the best of him and tries to throw it all back in her face and be like, well, but you don't like to let me know that you have money. Like, oh, kiss my butt. That's what I have to say to Michael is kiss my butt. But then we get back to the wedding scene, which is so beautiful. Like, I'm not typically one to, like, be like, weddings are nice, but like I'm not one to be like enamored by them, or like I've never been the girl that's planning my wedding forever and ever. And also there's a lot of movies where it's like, yeah, this family is rich and here's the wedding, and it's just like a normal wedding at a church or something, but they brought it out for this wedding. Like they did a very good job of making it very convincing that these were very crazy rich Asians that were hosting this wedding. It was absolutely stunning. Literal water like goes down the aisle as Araminta's walking down it. Ugh, gorgeous. But
yeah, they're really setting the bar for future movies for sure. I remember being very astonished by this scene, and I think it will be, I hope it will be one of the most iconic movie scenes of all time, because they really, I feel like that's so where a lot of their budget went, was creating this wedding.
It worked. It looked beautiful. And again, like, so many of their parties are so extravagant and over the top that like this wedding that's supposedly the wedding of the century, they definitely did a good job of making that believable. Because I feel like that's something that sometimes bothers me in like other movies where they're like, oh, it's going to be such a grand event, and then it's just not. But Crazy Rich Asians, y'all did it.
It's going to be amazing. And then they're just in a golf course.
Oh, God. As someone that used to work at a place that doubled as a wedding venue, it's exhausting. The winery that I used to work at.
And the pizzeria.
Winery. Oh, God. And like, totally not important, but yeah, I used to work at a winery that hosts a lot of weddings, and a lot of times the area where we did all of our prep cooking, the bride to be would be like walking back and forth, like that's where we like kept the brides. The chaos. I'd be like, oh my God, girl, it's your day. But also
it's your time to shine, baby.
I need to make some sauce, so please get out of my way. It was a lot. But anyways, so there's the wedding scene, which is really pretty. Eleanor decides to be rude yet again. Who's surprised? She's all like, oh, my row's full, and doesn't let Rachel sit with her. So Rachel honestly pulls such a power move. There's some princess that's there. I don't know if that was like her first name or if she was a princess. I'm not sure. But this woman of high regard had blocked out a whole row for just herself. But Rachel honestly does a really good job of talking to her, which you would think would impress Nick's family. But honestly, I think it just made Eleanor upset to see that Rachel is a person that people like, which, oh, Eleanor, you can kiss my butt as well. That's what I have to say about it. Then we get to the reception where, general reception. However, there is a moment, a very, very, very important moment in this movie. Amma wants to talk to Nick and Rachel and basically lets them know, over my dead body will you guys ever be married. You guys cannot be married. I do not approve of it. And Eleanor exposes to Rachel, who throughout the movie, when asked about her father, says that her father had died in a fire in a factory. Eleanor lets her know that's actually not the case. Your mother cheated on your father and then ran off to America and had you there, because she hired a PI to find out if Rachel had been telling the truth. Rachel runs away, obviously very distraught, and breaks up with Nick, is not here for it, and doesn't even mention in that moment to Eleanor, but she didn't even know that. That was another thing that Rachel realized, was that she didn't know the truth about her father. Doesn't try to throw that back in Eleanor's face or anything. She just runs away. And honestly, fair enough. That's a lot. I'd be very broken. And she goes back to Peak Lynn's place and very much doesn't move for days, is very sad for very obvious reasons. But then her mom shows up and it's so sweet. I love Rachel's mom so much. I love her so much. She's so sweet. And Rachel's mom is kind of gets her out of her funk a little bit. And then we get... there's a scene then where Rachel obviously discusses why she didn't tell Rachel about her dad, and was just for the sake of safety, I thought that either. So what happened? Sorry, totally getting caught up in my words. Rachel's mother had been married and was living in China at the time. However, her husband was abusive and not good to her, and a friend of hers who ended up being Rachel's father was helping her through all of that. However, they did get pregnant, and in order to protect her life as well as Rachel's father's life, she fled to America to basically just get away from all of it. So that's kind of that on that. But then we see Rachel and Nick meeting at a park where Nick does actually propose. We do not hear Rachel say whether or not she accepts it or denies it, but then we cut instead to a scene of Eleanor and Rachel, and this scene is so good. This scene is absolute chef's kiss. Basically, Rachel and Eleanor are playing mahjong, and keep in mind the initial scene that we saw of Rachel playing poker with her TA. It very much mirrors that scene, and I absolutely love it.
That never connected in my mind until now.
Wow.
Sorry, but that just made it so much better. Yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and it's one of the ones that very much stuck with me when they go to this big mahjong. What would you call it? A hall, a big
there's
arena.
A lot of tables and people are playing mahjong.
A lot of tables of people playing mahjong, which is my favorite Webkinz game, by the way.
I have no clue how to play mahjong at all.
I don't remember what it's called. It's something tiles, but
Kins Cash.
Yeah, again, that Kins Cash. But they're playing mahjong across from each other, and Rachel uses her girl boss strategy to basically confront Eleanor and tell her I am breaking up with your son because I'm not good for you. But I hope that when the right girl for him comes along, you will know that she gets to be with him and she gets to please you because I gave him the option to do that. Basically, whoever comes after me is only going to be there and make him happy because of me, and I want you to remember what I did to give you what you want. So
yeah,
it is manipulation, but it is manipulation at its finest.
Well, and there's another little layer to it. Because Rachel puts down, I had seen a video about this like forever ago. I wish I still had access to it. But she puts down a tile that basically, in most scenarios, would make it so that Eleanor wins. And Eleanor picks it up, plays it, thinks that she's winning. And Eleanor basically says, you never reject like a winning tile or like a winning hand. And that's when she makes the whole statement of like, when in the future, when you're all happy with your new grandkids and the woman that you actually approve of, she's only around because I chose to walk away, kind of a deal. So like, even though you think you've won, I made it so that happened, kind of a deal. Mm-hmm. But then she puts down her own hand that's even better than Eleanor's and wins the game because she's a baddie. Ugh. Absolute baddie. It was I wrote it down because she admits in this moment that she rejected Nick's proposal, and that's when she says all of that. And when she says, when you're with your grandkids having a good time, it was because of me, a poor, raised by a single mother, low class immigrant, nobody. And then she just walks away, and her mom just like stare at Eleanor, and then they walk away, and it is glorious. I love it so much. Delicious, I have to say. Oh, so good. Mm-hmm. Did you have any other thoughts on that scene, or just delicious?
I didn't. I just by this point in the movie, I think I was just constantly blown away by the cinematography and the title sequences, and just how like shiny and bright everything is, and the use of jewel tones is amazing. And I really do love this movie. I haven't ever read the book, and I would like to read the book.
I didn't know it had a book.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know that.
My mom read it before we saw the movie, and apparently it's very different than the actual movie. But I think it's definitely the climax of the movie, this mahjong scene, because it determines...
I was screaming.
Everything. It determines everything else that's going to happen later on. And it definitely empowers Rachel in a way where she hasn't shown her own independence and strength since landing in Singapore. Like, she's just very much been this little pawn, this little purse dog of a person that's just kind of like meeting everybody and going with everything. But you really get to see her in her power. Yeah. Thanks to her mother.
It's really great to see her back to kind of like that full force that we saw her at the very beginning of the movie. And again, like you said, like as soon as she gets to Singapore, it feels like everything's happening to her. But then after she gets her little pep talk from Peek Lin, and after she gets to see her mom and finally, confronts Eleanor, she kind of decides what happens, kind of a thing. She kind of like takes control back over her life, and it's really great to see. Then there's just like two more scenes. Basically, it's the classic getting chased at an airport. Nick chases down Rachel and her mom because they're flying back to the US, and he proposes to her on the plane, says a whole bunch of real cute romancy little things, and it works. And so they are engaged, and then there's an engagement party, and that's kind of the end of the movie. I did forget, there is one more scene, though, of Astrid and Michael. I did kind of finish up Nick and Rachel's story. And it's so cute, so great. Love it, love it, love it. But Astrid and Michael also have one more final scene where Michael is kind of packing up some of his stuff. And Astrid basically is like, you can keep this apartment. I own 14 apartment complexes. I'll find my... Like, she finally, in the same way with, like, Rachel... she finally is dictating what's going on with her life. She's no longer just like doing what she's doing in order to like make him feel comfortable. She's finally standing up for herself. And she's like, no, I'll be fine. You can keep this apartment, which is a beautiful apartment. It is so gorgeous. And she's just like, you can have it. And those $1.2 million earrings that I mentioned at the beginning of the movie that she buys, that she, along with like all of the rest of her stuff, you know, had kind of hidden, she finally puts them on. It's like her revenge dress, like her Princess Diana revenge dress. She puts on these $1.2 million earrings and just struts out of the apartment. And it is also glorious. I was also screaming during that. And I loved this movie. I loved it so much. I feel like it was a little tougher to prepare for the episode for, because I'm used to just having pure chaos to talk about. And like, typically we go off on rants about the stupid things that are said in these movies, but like this movie was just so good. I was so happy to watch it. Thank you so much to Maddie, our friend Maddie, for recommending it and requesting it. We do also have a request form for all of y'all in our link tree that's in our Twitter bio. I don't know, is it in our Instagram bio at all?
Not yet, but I can put it there. I tried to figure out how to do it and it told me it was a bad link, so
we'll figure it out. Anyways, if you follow us on Twitter, I believe we're at the U-Haulmark Pod there, and then we're like U-Haulmark Pod on TikTok, and same thing on Instagram. We have a link tree in our Twitter bio, and you can recommend movies, so you can have a say and you can get a little shout out.
Or you can email us at the U-Haulmark Podcast@gmail.com, and you can
also
say whatever you want to us. You can ask us questions. We can give you any type of advice that you need. We can talk about different movies. If there were other movies that have enraged you or movies that you would like to see, our email is always open. And just let us know if you would like us to talk about it on the podcast.
This is true. But yeah, that's that movie. Loved it. Great movie. Solid. What am I even going to put the rating in? Like, nothing all that chaotic was said.
I was going to give it 10 out of 10 rainbow sheep.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 rainbow sheep.
Or
that's
chicken
what it
nuggets.
is. Chicken nuggets?
Because...
Oh, yeah, there were chicken nuggets at Pete Lynn's house. Yeah.
You better eat your chicken nuggets. There's children starving in America. Which was such a funny line.
Truly. It was a good time. But yeah, great movie. I have to say, absolutely loved it. And what's the movie that we're watching next that we put off? What's that one called? It was one that you chose. It was another Band Slam. That is the next movie that we're watching. For those at home, it is free on YouTube, but probably won't be for us, because guess what? Bakery in Brooklyn, now that we've watched it, is now free again.
It's free again, so you can watch that monstrosity. But we are bringing Miss Vanessa Hudgens.
Oh no.
It's been a long day, Grace. There's been so much chaos in my life. Oh my god. I can't say words anymore. There's so much chaos. Oh my god.
So much.
It's so hard being me.
It is. But up next is another Vanessa Hudgens, as well as I can never remember if it's Allie or AJ from Allie and AJ, but it's the one that was in Phil of the Future.
It's always Allie.
Oh, well, excuse me. I love the both of them. Allie and AJ have such good music these days, I have got to say. Their music is so good, always. Anyways, shout out to Allie and AJ. A little underground if you haven't heard of them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're going to watch Band Slam next. It'll probably be more chaotic. We're going back to our roots, getting back to the chaos, and we look forward to seeing y'all there.
Catch y'all later, my dudes.